Kia ora, welcome to The Distant Vale. I'm Harry, and about a week ago, James and I received the Next Wave action pack for Infinity, courtesy of Corvus Belli. We had a race to the, I think it's a Mech Dragon mini, but unfortunately, I did not win. Now, with this new box of minis, there's always a catch. James said I had to match the box art. So here we are on the Infinity website. Looking here, I picked up one of the rain dancers, so both rain dancers, so Red Fury here and the Contender, and you can see that these have got some black cloth, some red cloth, some non-metallic metal, a little bit of like a light blue teal sort of lighting effect. I think there's a couple of browns in around on the model, as well as a few highlights of magenta. And let's see how close I can get to recreating the box art. Right, first step, we want to dry brush on a zenithal. This is primarily so I can actually see what I'm doing. And then I want to grab basically every red that I own, plus an orange as our highest highlight. We want to build up some nice solid base coats. And then we're just going to do some really chunky highlights, just trying to build up a bit of volume on the areas of the model that we want to draw some attention to, and anywhere that we feel like the light will be caught a little bit more strongly. And once we have those highlights on, I'm going to grab just a little red and water it down, and this is just going to help to tie all those reds and the orange together as one cohesive colour, followed by some homemade panel liner. So taking some black ink with some flow improver, it'll help break the surface tension, and it acts like a really strong wash, and it does like to sit in the recesses, so you can be a little bit messier with it than you would otherwise. And then I'm just going to re-highlight up the pure red and the orange just to bring that volume highlight back. For the greys and for the non-metallic metals, I'm just grabbing a black, a white, a deep grey, and a couple of other lighter greys. And we're just going to be doing some progressive, again, chunky highlighting up from a solid base up to something pretty close to a pure white on any of the metallic surfaces. And anywhere that we think is going to be cloth, we don't have to highlight up much more than maybe the first or second light grey, just so it has a bit of shimmer and definition to it, but it doesn't need to be particularly bright. This will help to differentiate between the metallics and the fabrics. And this is probably one of Corvus Belli's biggest strengths, is that the sculpts on these models really lend themselves well to really simple highlights. Models basically help point you to where they want to be highlighted anyway. It's been a real joy. I don't normally like edge highlighting or doing the volumetric stuff on fabrics, but this is a real joy. The only other step for these is adding back in that panel liner and using it as a pretty heavy wash, just to go through and darken down any of the fabric or sort of shaded areas on the metallics that I want to help pop with that really dark panel lining effect. And with that, majority of the models are actually done. So with the non-metallic metals, the fabrics, and the reds done, there's really only a couple of skin details and maybe a few sort of magenta and teal accents that need to be done, and that's going to be nice and straightforward. I'm just going to basically run around each of the models and just dab on a few licks of paint anywhere I want to draw attention to, or I want to differentiate out from the bulk of the colouring. So the next thing is some of the leather sort of detailing on these minis. So I'm just taking a warm brown and a yellow, doing down a little base layer, and then mixing them up just to make a few easy highlights. I also want to do a bit of a sort of pinky magenta bag. So taking the basilisk red and again building up the highlights from the red to magenta, and then using the panel wash as a panel liner as a wash again before re-highlighting up with the magenta. Skin, nice and straightforward. Just taking some of the Caucasian skin tones that I have, chucking down a few very broad highlights, and then glazing in those transition areas in order to make them look a little smoother, and it helps to add a bit of softness to the face. Now for the hair, I'm going to do one teal and one grey. So I've grabbed a blue-green from Vallejo as my base and just mixed in progressively more white to add highlights, and just really using the ridges on the hair to do the work, followed by some glazing in of that same blue-green to give a stubble effect. For the hair, I'm just going to use the same greys that I used for the cloth, but just starting on the brightest grey and then again progressively adding in more white to give the highlights. I figured it just looked a little too same, so I've tucked in just some dark grey to help break up the shapes, and then done a sort of magenta to pink streak through the hair. This just helps to make it look visually a little bit more interesting. Now I went back and looked at some of the concept art for this mini, and I noticed that actually there is a headband. So I've gone ahead and grabbed some brown, and I'll do the same thing I did with the leather, adding in progressively more yellow to give a sort of very rough and ready non-metallic gold effect with the headband, and chucking in a few magenta lines freehand to add a few details on the back of the jacket. And with that, the minis are done. Maybe not quite the same as the box art, but I think I've done a pretty good job of making them look good, just using the paints that I have on hand. Let me know what you think, and I can't wait to see you all at the next one.